Blake Shelton once joked that buying a gift from Miranda Lambert was nearly impossible. She was successful, fiercely independent, and possessed everything she ever wanted. The things she didn't have, she could simply buy herself. So, what exactly do you get the woman who has everything? For years, fans thought the answer was simple: a love like no other. They were the undisputed king and queen of country music. A duo whose every red carpet glance and onstage harmony seemed to signal a bond that was unbreakable. But as the world watched them collect trophies and share laughs, a much darker reality was simmering beneath the surface, behind the glitz and the million-dollar diamonds. A secret gift was being prepared, one that would eventually leave Miranda in tears and change her life forever. It wasn't wrapped in a box, and it didn't come from a boutique. It was a gift that would cost them both their marriage before the headlines turned sour. The story of Blake and Miranda was the ultimate Nashville fairy tale. When they first crossed paths, they were at two very different stages of their journey. Blake was the charismatic baritone with a string of hits and a playful, easygoing charm that made him a natural star. Miranda was the sharp, emotionally raw songwriter, an artist whose music carried a jagged edge that set her apart from the polished pop country of the time. They ran in the same circles, but their connection was not an immediate explosion for the cameras. Instead, it grew quietly, fueled by a deep, mutual respect for the craft of songwriting. Blake couldn't stop gushing about her talent in interviews, and Miranda saw in Blake someone who truly understood the grueling demands of an industry that often chews people up. They had both been through the ringer in previous relationships, which made them protective of what they were building. They moved carefully, finding a rhythm that felt like home before they ever let the public in on the secret. When the world finally found out they were a couple, the reaction wasn't skepticism, it was pure warmth. There was something undeniably natural about them. They shared the same sharp sense of humor and a bone-deep love for the traditions of country music. On stage, their chemistry was electric. Off stage, they were the kind of couple you'd see holding hands in a small Oklahoma town, seemingly untouched by the madness of fame. Critics looked for signs of competition between two massive stars, but they found none. If anything, Blake seemed to relish being his wife's biggest cheerleader. He played the role of the lucky country boy to perfection, while Miranda remained the focused, driven poet of the pair. For the fans, it felt real. It didn't look like a PR stunt or a managed brand. It looked like to people who understood the long nights on the tour bus and the crushing pressure of a blank page. They gave each other grace, or so it seemed, and built a life rooted in shared values and a genuine affection that felt like it would last a lifetime. As their relationship deepened, the pace quickened. By 2010, Blake had proposed, and a year later, they were married in a private ceremony that felt like a statement of protection over their private lives. Marriage didn't turn them into stiff corporate figures. It seemed to amplify their joy. At award shows, Blake was always in the front row, beaming as if he had won the lottery every time Miranda took the stage. Behind the scenes, their lives bled into one another. Miranda leaned on Blake's perspective when the industry got too loud, and Blake admitted that Miranda's raw, unapologetic approach to music pushed him to be a better artist. They talked about their dogs, their quiet nights on the ranch, and the mundane routines that kept them sane. It was during this time that Blake made those famous jokes about how Miranda was too rich to buy for. It was a funny line, but it hinted at the reality of two separate empires growing at an astronomical rate. From the outside, there were no cracks. They were a team that had cracked the code of celebrity survival. But sometimes the things we value most are the easiest to lose when we stop looking closely. When it came to gift giving, Blake didn't hold back. Despite his everyman persona, his gifts were fit for royalty. For their wedding, he presented Miranda with a $1.2 million diamond set that would make a Hollywood starlet blush. It featured a 5-carat eternity band and a massive 30-carat necklace. He continued this trend for years, commissioning custom-designed hummingbird rings encrusted with paved jewels and spending $20,000 on a gold charm necklace where each charm represented one of her rescue dogs. Their wealth grew alongside their fame. leading to the purchase of 2.2 million Australian dollars mansion in Tennessee and massive estates in Oklahoma. On their third anniversary, the gift was more personal. Blake spent the day fixing the engine on Miranda's broken boat, so it was ready the moment she stepped off her tour bus. But as the gifts grew larger and the bank accounts grew deeper, the physical distance between them began to stretch. Blake was becoming a crossover titan on The Voice, spending months in the neon glow of Los Angeles, while Miranda stayed rooted in the dirt and grit of the South. The togetherness that fans loved was slowly being replaced by a grueling, toastal to-go-vor. Blake was now a household name beyond country music, surrounded by the gloss of Hollywood and playing a character that was always on. Miranda, meanwhile, was doubling down on her identity as a country outlaw, winning every award in sight by writing about heartbreak and whiskey. You had the happy-go-lucky TV star versus the tortured country poet, and those two worlds were starting to clash. They were living airport lives, sharing high-pressure reunions between flights. The public still expected the fun, beer-drinking couple from the 2011 CMAs, but the exhaustion was becoming impossible to hide. The jokes Blake made about being Mr. Miranda Lambert began to feel sharper, and Miranda's interviews took on a warning tone. She started telling reporters she wasn't sunshine and roses. The silence between them was no longer peaceful. It was heavy with the weight of two people who were growing into versions of themselves the other didn't quite recognize anymore. The breaking point arrived in July 2015. With a short, measured statement, the king and queen of the country announced that they were divorcing after 4 years of marriage. The news hit the public like a physical blow. There were no accusations or fiery scandals in the official report, just a request for privacy and a claim of mutual respect. But the silence from the couple only fueled the fire of speculation. Rumors began to swirl about potential infidelities, with whispers suggesting that the pressures of their separate lives had led to a breach of trust. Some pointed to Blake's rapid transition into a new high-profile relationship as a sign that the marriage had ended long before the paperwork was filed. Others wondered if Miranda's intense focus on her music had left no room for a husband who was increasingly distracted by the bright lights of LA. Whatever the reason, the brand had finally collapsed. They weren't fighting in the streets, but they were no longer a united front. The wood was damp and the fire was out. In the months that followed, the true nature of that secret gift finally came to light. It wasn't the diamonds or the mansions. The gift Blake unknowingly gave Miranda was the space to be alone. The divorce, while devastating, forced her into a period of radical self-examination. In 2016, she released The Weight of These Wings, an album that reeked of the loneliness and resilience of a woman standing on her own 2 feet again. She described the period as formative and difficult, acknowledging that the marriage had changed her in ways that weren't easy but were ultimately necessary. The gift was the clarity that comes with loss, the ability to make choices without compromise and to reconnect with the parts of herself that had been compressed by the demands of a high-profile marriage. It wasn't a victory, but it was a turning point. She learned how to exist honestly within her own life again, listening to her own voice without the interference of a power couple narrative. Today, the dust has settled, but the story continues to fascinate. Miranda moved forward with a renewed creative independence, eventually finding love again in a relationship that feels far more private and grounded. She's no longer the wife of a superstar. She is an institution unto herself. Blake, too, found a new path, settling into a life that looks very different from the one he shared on the Oklahoma ranch years ago. He spoke openly about the pain of the transition, admitting it took time to process the end of something so meaningful. While fans still look back at their old performances with a sense of nostalgia, it's clear that the split was the catalyst both needed to become who they are today. The secret gift was never about the price tag, it was about the freedom to grow apart so they could finally grow up. It's a reminder that even the most picturesque love stories have a final chapter. And sometimes the ending is where the real story actually begins. The story of Blake and Miranda, serves as a powerful reminder that fame and fortune cannot shield a relationship from the complexities of human growth and changing priorities. Their journey from a quiet connection to a public powerhouse, and finally to a respectful but definitive split, reflects a universal truth about the nature of love and identity, as they both continue to thrive in their respective lives and careers. The secret gift of self-recognition remains the most enduring part of their legacy together. It invites us to consider the value of the difficult endings in our own lives, and how they might be the very things that lead us back to ourselves. What do you think was the real reason behind their split? Was it the distance, the fame, or something else entirely? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories behind your favorite stars. Thanks for watching.